The tickets were already gone before most people even realized what was happening. Not after the draw. Not after the seedings were announced. Long before any of that. On a Monday morning resale app, a stadium pass that normally costs around $60 suddenly appeared for $400. 10 minutes later, the page refreshed and the price had climbed again. Courtside sections were already crossing the $1,000 mark before noon, and the tournament had not even officially started. Not a single ball had been struck in the main draw yet, but the Coachella Valley already sensed that something massive was coming. Her name is Alexandra Eala. She is 20 years old, left-handed, and from Manila. And at this moment, she has become one of the most disruptive forces Indian Wells has ever welcomed onto its courts. This disruption is not just happening inside the draw or on the scoreboard. It is happening in hotels, merchandise lines, corporate offices, and especially in the secondary ticket markets where a round of 6-4 match is now being priced like a Grand Slam final. What nobody expected is that a world number 31 could trigger something like this. A player seeded 31 is not supposed to shake the financial structure of a tournament before even playing her first match. Normally, a player in that position does not cause security teams to double their presence during a morning practice session. They do not sell out merchandise collections within minutes of the store's opening. They certainly do not make celebrities struggle to find courtside seats. But the rulebook for Indian Wells this year was effectively torn up before the week even began, and no one in the tournament's history had a contingency plan for what is unfolding. If you start with the numbers, the scale becomes clearer. Secondary ticket platforms reveal where the real demand exists. In a typical year, a general stadium pass for the opening rounds costs somewhere between $60 and $80. It is manageable and expected. But this week, any session involving Alexandra Eala started at $400, climbed towards $600 in mid-level seats, and moved beyond $1,000 for courtside rows. Those are prices usually seen during the final weekend of a major tournament, not in the opening rounds of a WTA 1000 event. Yet, the Filipino community in California does not operate based on historical precedent. It is one of the largest overseas communities anywhere, and preparations for this moment had been underway for months. From San Diego to San Francisco and across the state, thousands of fans had been organizing, coordinating travel, booking hotels, and accepting whatever price the resale market demanded. For them, this was not simply another tennis match. This was the first time in history that a Filipino athlete entered a WTA 1000 tournament as a seeded player. That turns a sporting event into a national moment, and no price was going to keep them out of the stadium. Season ticket holders who had attended Indian Wells for decades walked through the gates and realized they were experiencing a tournament they barely recognized. Crowds dressed in blue, red, and yellow were chanting in Tagalog before the main draw even began. The parking lots were loud, and the practice courts were even louder. When Alexandra Eala stepped onto one of the practice courts for training, the crowd became so dense that fans were climbing just to get a glimpse of her Nike gear. Security had already been increased, yet it barely contained the excitement. The atmosphere during practice felt more electric than many tournament finals. The WTA suddenly had to rethink security, seating, and crowd management for the rest of the week. This was no ordinary crowd. It felt like a cultural takeover, and it was only the beginning. However, the ticket market frenzy was just the visible surface of something much larger. While fans were scrambling for seats, another development was quietly unfolding inside Nike's headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon. Just days before arriving in California, Alexandra Eala had visited the Nike campus. Publicly, it looked like a simple sponsor visit, something athletes do all the time between tournaments. But insiders suggest it was far more significant. According to reports, Nike may be reshaping its entire Gen Z global marketing strategy around her. The numbers being discussed are enormous, with talk of a long-term endorsement deal valued somewhere between $45 and $75 million. That kind of investment for a player ranked 31 is extraordinary. Nike is not focused on her current ranking. Instead, the company is looking at a global audience of millions of Filipinos and a massive Gen Z market across Southeast Asia. When she walked through that campus, it felt less like a routine sponsor visit and more like a symbolic passing of the torch. She was being placed into a legacy that includes some of the most influential figures in tennis history. People inside those rooms understood that something new was being built. Back at Indian Wells, the merchandise stands confirmed the impact almost immediately. Within the first hour of opening, Alexandra Eala's signature collection was completely sold out. Every size, every item vanished. Her merchandise outsold the combined gear of several of the highest-ranked players in the tournament. That statistic did not go unnoticed by the veterans in the locker room. For players who spent years building their brands and climbing the rankings, watching a 20-year-old newcomer generate that level of commercial attention is a striking reality. It is not personal, it is simply the mathematics of global markets and fan bases. The economic ripple effect extended beyond the stadium as well. Tournament organizers began reporting something unprecedented. For the first time in the event's history, a majority of hotel bookings and restaurant reservations in the area were coming from international visitors. Fans were flying in from Manila, Singapore, and cities across the United States just to be present for this tournament. Local businesses throughout the Coachella Valley felt the surge immediately. Restaurants were packed, hotels were full, and ticket demand exceeded supply by such a margin that officials even considered installing giant screens outside the stadium, so fans without seats could still experience the matches. Many people had traveled all that way without knowing if they would even get inside, but they came anyway. Then there is the draw itself, which added another layer of intensity to the story. When the bracket was released, it placed Alexandra Eala in one of the toughest sections of the entire tournament. Her projected path could lead directly to the reigning world number one, Aryna Sabalenka, in the early rounds. That possibility alone ignited excitement across the tennis world and caused betting markets to react almost instantly. Analysts began discussing how the unique conditions at Indian Wells might influence such a matchup. The high bouncing courts, dry desert air, and slower surfaces tend to reward spin, patience, and tactical variety. These conditions could favor Eala's style of play, especially considering the training she developed at the Rafa Nadal Academy. Her recent performances had already caught the attention of analysts, including a major victory over a top player earlier in the season. Experts began using dramatic language to describe what her left-handed spin could do against powerful opponents on this surface. Suddenly, a potential early round clash was being talked about as one of the most anticipated matches of the tournament. But before even reaching that stage, she would have to navigate a difficult path through experienced players and former champions. Some analysts described this section of the draw as a group of death, where every match felt like a final. Despite the challenge ahead, Alexandra Eala made a decision that revealed her focus for the tournament. She withdrew from doubles competition entirely. No extra matches, no divided attention, every ounce of energy would go into the singles draw. That choice made it clear she did not arrive simply hoping for a respectable run. Her goal was to compete for the title itself. Observers watching her practice sessions described her intensity as ferocious. Her left-handed forehand cut through the desert air with precision, drawing crowds who stopped just to watch her train. As evening fell over the Indian Wells tennis garden, the atmosphere felt heavier, almost historic. What had unfolded in those days was more than just excitement around a rising star. It felt like the sport itself was being pushed toward a new chapter. From the streets of Manila to the courts of California, Alexandra Eala had already achieved something remarkable. She entered a major tournament as a seeded player, commanded the attention of fans worldwide, and shifted the economic spotlight of an entire event before playing her first competitive match. Now the conversation has changed. It is no longer about whether she belongs on this stage. That question has already been answered. The real question is how far she can go and whether anyone in the draw can stop her momentum. When she steps onto the court for her opening match, the crowd inside the stadium will likely be unlike anything the tournament has experienced before. The energy, the noise, and the support surrounding her will be immense. Backed by millions of fans and the belief of an entire nation, Alexandra Eala is standing at the entrance of something historic. And the story is only just beginning.